Hello, welcome back. I'm Nate alongside with Daniel. Episode 3 of Two Idiots Doing a Podcast. Um, just a brief overview. We talk about a couple different sports: college football, baseball, hockey. If you have not joined us before, um, and just trying to prove that we're smarter than your basic average analyst like Colin Coward, which to be fair, not hard to do, right? Um, or Max Kellerman, fate of the universe, right? You take Andre Iguodala. Oh my gosh. Obviously you'll hear us babble and ramble and might hear some interesting takes, and that's what we're here for. So start us off. I will jump. I know we said we won't talk about NFL much, but again, I just had to get these out here because one of them's ridiculously funny, and one of them is ridiculous. Um, really, I'll just report on this and we can move on. But I thought, unless if you have a thought on it, but NFL Red Zone, for those of you who know, it's probably one of the more popular things to use to watch football. 7 hours ad free. Well, last week it was not ad free. On one of the screens, there were ads running, and definitely thought that was interesting because that it could set up for a lawsuit. And I hope it does. Even Pat McAfee talked about this. Think it's, I don't know what prompted them to do this, but I mean, you cannot advertise yourself as ad free and then do something this stupid. I really hope it backfires for them because that is just shameful, scummy. And I just hope the people go to streaming services to show it to the NFL Network world. I'm not going to name the streaming services because I totally don't use them. so, um, but yeah, so I just figured I'd bring that up. The other thing, for those of you who know, Woody Johnson, who is the owner of the New York Jets, rejected a trade. It is true. It is confirmed. To my knowledge, several, like I think even Bleacher Report posted about this. Um, posted that Woody Johnson rejected a trade for Jerry Jeudy all over his Madden rating. And I think it gets worse too. I think, um, yeah, I don't remember the whole story, but I remember there's more to it than that. But I just, I don't even know what to say. That is just, you know, just makes you wonder. Yeah, no wonder why the Jets haven't won a Super Bowl in 50 some odd years. And no wonder why they're fifth in their division in division titles. For those that you don't know, by the way, there's four teams in the AFC East. So the fact that they're fifth is hilarious. But Jets gonna jet. They missed out on a 1,000-yard receiver. Of course, could argue Jerry Jeudy has not lived up to expectations up to this point, but would have helped them out a lot. It might not be 4-10. They might at least, have two more wins if they had just gone through with it. So, but Jets gonna jet. Their acronym is Jets. Just end their season.
I
So
also I also heard apparently the GM for I think it's Joe Douglas was their previous GM, or I know his last name ended with Douglas. Anyways, apparently said that the owner's son was making decisions and he's only
yeah,
17
that's
years
what it
old.
was. Thank you. That's what it was.
Come on, come on. And apparently it sounds like his son was the one that brought to his attention the awareness rating for Judy. I'm like,
My
come on, man.
goodness.
You're gonna run your team just based on
It's
how
embarrassing.
your son.
It's embarrassing. They're just, I think the NFL needs to figure out, you got to find a way to be able to kick out owners because the McCaskies, Woody, it's just scummy, lazy people. They just, they're just certain teams that are never going to win because of their owners. The Bears are one of them. They're not going to win with the McCaskies as owners. And the same thing goes with the Jets. And I don't even know how Aaron Rodgers convinced himself to go there. Maybe it's just because he felt like he didn't have a choice. He's 40 years old. But I mean, oh my gosh, just to add on to this, to add to the wound really quickly. Apparently, Mike White, one game in 2022 when he was going on his Linsanity run against the Seahawks, he slammed his helmet, and the Woody Johnson had said, "You better slam your helmet. You bleeping suck." And I was just like, first of all, he was doing great. Second of all, how are you gonna run an organization and then have the nerve to tell your players they suck? They're not gonna want to play for you. I just Woody Johnson, you're a mess. Yeah, you need to get it together, man. Just sell. For
Yeah,
the Jets fans' sake, just sell, man. You're such a jerk.
yeah.
But
I don't understand. I thought the Rangers was like when we had John Daniels was run poorly, but man, I
no.
I could not be a Jets fan right now. I mean, I know I've seen a lot of Jets fan being like, I'm going to another team,
Don't blame him.
and I
I
will be
respect it.
back as a Jets fan whenever he sells the team. And I first of all respect them for being along for the ride for this long,
Yeah.
and just jumping off. But I mean, at this point, your organization's in shambles. No one's going to want to come work with you or work for you because you have a quick gun, or you listen to your 17-year-old son who probably knows very little about football, especially if he's telling you not to take a player because he saw a Madden rating.
It's
Like,
so
come
bad.
on.
They're so
There are
bad.
so many people that are underrated on Madden that end up getting better rated throughout the year. I
Well,
just
he
don't
should just know
understand.
Madden rings also are awful. They have been
Ugh,
known to be terrible. I felt like one year like Jamar Chase was under a 90, and I was just like, I'm sorry, what? So just a horrible basis to use because they're bad to begin with. But man, the Jets got to figure it out because right now you're seeing Tua, you see Josh Allen, and now you see Drake May. They're screwed. They're so screwed
mm-hmm.
right now. But
Yep.
we're not here for NFL, but that is pretty funny content. Make fun of the Jets. So,
Yeah.
where
Well,
do you want to jump in? I
yeah.
do see you
Well,
have a couple topics too. So,
yeah. We'll move into my topic about Diego Pavia. The dude, as of I think it was this morning or yesterday morning, one of the two, got an extension on his eligibility. His last game was supposed to be against Georgia Tech in his bowl game, but apparently just got a another year of eligibility. What I thought was crazy was the judge that saw his case said that JUCO should not count
mhm.
as eligibility for your NCAA years, which opens a whole nother door, which I think is dumb because then there's no reason. Well, I have a lot of thoughts in my head about this, but for high schoolers, it sucks because you can't go into a university like Alabama or like a Texas or like a powerhouse school and be willing to sit for a couple years like they did when the Nick Saban era was, because who knows, in 2 years they may go get a JUCO player that's already played 2 years of college, and now you're having to play against 26, 27, 28 year
That's
olds.
kind of bad.
I mean, Steve Sarkeesian, which doesn't usually say much to the media, came out and said it's a dumb decision and you're opening a door you don't want to open.
Yeah.
And Pat McAfee, once again, had a show and he brought the NCAA president on. And it was right after, yeah, right after the ruling came in, and the president was like, "We don't have usually any say in this." And so he was like, "Don't expect it to become a precedent." So hopefully, this isn't a thing. Maybe it's just a one-time deal. I know the COVID years are
Really
still
messed things up.
biting us in the butt right now, but I hope this thing doesn't actually come through, and that JUCO does not count because I think it should. I understand everyone's not going to get a scholarship. That's the way the world works. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, but you can't give people 2 extra years of eligibility because that's
There-
essentially what you're doing. And then you're just going to kill the high school game and high schoolers coming out of high school because they're just going to go straight to JUCO because why
Mhm.
go to college? Why go to an actual university?
I agree. The one nice thing about it would give guys at JUCO an opportunity to prove themselves, but I think ultimately there's just too many negatives to opening this door that I think it would impact college football negatively far more than it would benefit. So, I'm okay with it as an exception, but it should not, the dangers of making exceptions is, as you mentioned, it could open opportunities and you're going to start fighting people that are going to say, well, you let Diego do it. Why aren't you letting me do it? So, it is a dangerous game they're playing. And the fact that the NCAA president said they have no say in it kind of wild to me and just shows more that the NCAA blows. But, um, yeah, I don't know much enough about it to really know should they have a say in it, granted, but, um, yeah, an interesting decision. Um, it ultimately doesn't affect me that much. I root for a Mickey Mouse University anyway, so we can use all the help we can get to contend for 9-win seasons. I don't even want conference championships at this point. I'm that desperate, but, um, yeah, good for Diego, I guess, but it is a dangerous thing that they're flirting with that could really we don't want 28-year-olds in college football. As funny as it is to see guys in like their ninth year of eligibility, it's just it's not fair to 20-year-olds. It just isn't. So, yeah.
Well, apparently Alan Bowman was allowed like an eighth year or something like that. Um, but
The Oklahoma State guy.
yeah, he said he's not gonna take it. He's going.
Oh, good
He
for
he
him.
he put himself in the NFL draft. So he
Good for
said,
him.
"Nope, I don't want to stay anymore. I'm leaving."
What the heck is going on at Oklahoma State, by the way? Because that's like what their second. Wasn't Brandon Whedon there?
Yeah, Brandon
What?
Whedon is another one. See, Brandon
They
Whedon's
still
though
can't win.
that was an exception because he played baseball and then went back and used his
Yeah, I
30-year
know. I get it.
eligibility.
I get it. I just think
But still,
I
a
think it's
30-year-old
funny
quarterback.
that
Come on.
they've, if I had a nickel for every time they've done this, I'd have two nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
Yeah.
So what the heck,
Yeah.
OK State, but um,
I mean, we can stick with the NCAA and move on. Um,
yeah, we didn't really
apparently,
get to talk a ton about college football
yeah.
last time, so we can just jump hockey for a bit for that. So
Apparently, Ewers is staying for another year, or is wanting to stay for another year, and apparently there's a couple of suitors for him. Apparently, it has been reported that a Big Ten school is offering him $4 million to skip the draft and go to their school.
don't like that. I don't
And
like that.
then another one is obviously Bill Belichick's North Carolina. They are trying to lure either Ewers or
Please, North
Manning
Carolina. Please,
away from
please.
Texas. So we're in for an interesting time. We didn't talk about the transfer portal last time, and I think we can talk about that here too, because the transfer portal is
It's a hot
wild,
topic.
and we can expand that here in a second. But I think if Ewers doesn't go to the league, which I don't think he should, because I don't think he's developmentally ready for it,
Mhm.
um, he needs to go somewhere else because I don't think there's a spot left for him in Texas. I think Sarkisian is ready for Manning to take over. You have 3 years of Manning. And I think if you keep yours and have him play one more year, you lose out on Manning. I
You're
think
gonna
Manning.
lose Manning. He's
I
gonna
think
he's gonna leave.
yeah.
Yeah, you
He
can't lose Manning.
there's enough suitors for him that he would go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first things first, I am hoping and praying that Suter is in Ohio State. I don't want him to go to any Big Ten team except he would never go to Illinois, so I don't want him to go to Illinois. Go to Indiana, baby. Let's go. Of course, I don't think it was him. I thought I saw it might have been Oregon that was the
Mhm.
suitor, but I don't know if it was true or if
I
it's
could
if
I could
it's
also see
leaked.
I could
Um,
also see Ohio State because
they need a
they are
quarterback.
this just revolving door of using transfer
Um,
quarterbacks.
I think that'd be really funny, though. You go full circle, you lose yours that just to get them back. That would be interesting. I don't think it was them though. I think
I
Oregon
mean,
might
he
have
has
been.
more wins against Michigan than anyone else, so
That's actually crazy. Oh my gosh! But
and he's only played him
ultimately,
once.
yeah. Oh gosh, that's so funny to me. Yeah, and then maybe Ohio State is desperate. They're so desperate to beat Michigan again that they lose focus on the actual goal, but they beat Michigan next year. I mean, good for you, I guess. But ultimately, I want him to go to North Carolina, and I think I think that'd be a great fit for him. You're getting ready for the NFL, right? He's got the tools, he's got the skill set to lead an NFL team for sure. He needs to be mentally ready. And what other coach is better to prepare you for that than, the greatest NFL coach of all time?
Yeah.
So, I that's what I do personally. And yeah, and I'd want him to go 100% on me. Scream at me, if I mess up. But we'll see what yours does. Obviously he's leaving Texas. At least I'd hope. So, it'll be an interesting decision where he goes. But that 4 million, that's a lot of freaking money. So
Mhm.
that's a lot of stinking money. As for the transfer portal, I think you had mentioned it was when should players be allowed to enter the portal? And for me, it's just I just hate the idea of it's happening during playoff season and bowl games. I just think that's ridiculous. I think, I'm more traditional in the sense that you made a commitment, stick to it. So that's why I've just not been a huge fan of this NIL stuff in general. I do think it's, benefited college football, but I just hate the fact that you could commit to a school and then just be like, oh yeah, never mind. They gave me more money. But that's not the conversation right now. The transfer portal. Yeah, I think we need to. I think I think it's okay so long as your team is eliminated. I think that it could start at a certain point so long as you're done. But if you're in a bowl game or if you're in the playoffs, heck no. Um, I just think it's crazy that Quinn Ewers right now could just be like, "Yeah, Texas, I'm not playing. I'm out." You're playing for a national championship. Now, obviously, Ewers wouldn't do that right now, but yeah, I think it's gonna cause a lot of problems, and this should be very easily avoided. You could just say this day after the national championship, boom, you can start. It shouldn't be that hard, but
Yeah, I mean, the
um,
Penn State backup had to say he was going to the draft, or not to the draft, to the portal because he said his quote was, "I didn't want to miss out on the portal this early because
yeah,
all of the quarterback spots were getting filled," which makes total sense. Like
yeah, yeah,
I if I'm a backup and I'm trying to go somewhere to start, I'm not waiting until my team is eliminated or I have to
yeah.
play a
That's a
bowl
good point.
game.
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
Like, and then all of these other spots are now taken, and I have to go be backup somewhere else. Um, and so I think the transfer portal needs to be pushed back a little bit. I agree with that statement. I think once again you've got these college football playoff teams. There's a couple of Longhorns that have already said they're going into transfer, that they're in the transfer portal. You have, I mean, the Penn State quarterback. You're just going to start having guys say, "I'm leaving for the portal, and I can't play for you guys anymore, and we're gonna miss out on some of the best college football." Which is what happens in the college football playoffs. But I did hear that if you are a college football playoff team, that you have 5 days after your team's eliminated to enter the portal, which once again, I still think is not beneficial for them
Nah, it's not fair to
because,
them.
once again, if you're not one of the top guys, because if you're a starter and you're leaving, there are rare cases that you're leaving as a starter, but most of these guys that are going to leave are going to be backups and second,
Backups, yeah.
third string, fourth string, whatever. Um, and you're running into the issue of then all of the spots being filled and they're having to go do the same thing with another team. Now, if you're a Quinn Ewers and you're leaving, that makes sense. Everyone's going to pursue you. Everyone's going to want you. You're going to go in and be the starter anywhere you go. But like I said, if you're one of these second, third stringers, like most of these guys are that are in the portal, or a guy seeking a better school, you're not going to have that opportunity anymore. Especially, I don't know, if you make it
Mhm.
to the championship game and then you have 5 days after the championship game, all the spots are taken.
Yeah, it's tough. I think you just got to level the playing field at the end of the day, and I just think it's way easier to just say January 2nd or whatever day again. It doesn't necessarily have to be day after national championship, but just let the playoffs ride out, let the bowl games ride out, and then just let everybody transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know why that wasn't really taken into consideration. I don't know what's preventing that. So maybe there's a reason, but let's be honest, it's the NCAA. They're dumb. So
I also feel bad for the coaches that are in the college football playoff. You're
yeah,
trying to prepare for
and you're losing
probably
guys.
probably some of your biggest games of your lives. And not only are you losing your guys, you're going to have to now go into the transfer portal and look at guys that you may want. So,
Yeah,
like, for example, let's use one of the guys that's already been signed, a Caden Salters, like a quarterback from Liberty. Let's say, I don't know, Penn State wanted him. And now, instead of focusing on going and winning your college football playoff game, now you're having to focus on, oh, I've got to go sign this guy because I really want him,
yeah.
and I have to try and negotiate with him because other teams are also pursuing him. And so it's just an unfortunate thing for even coaches because they aren't getting the chance to fully look at these guys that they
Mm-mm.
want.
Yeah, tough to juggle multiple things like that. Those aren't light things to carry. Having to decide your future and having to prepare for how are we going to win this game to get to the next step to getting a championship. So, um, I think it's a mess, but I think they'll figure it out. I think it'll be all settled out hopefully in the next couple of years. But
Yeah, I mean
again,
they
yeah,
figured it out for men's basketball. I mean, they moved it back a couple weeks into March Madness,
good.
and it it has done well for that because at that point, if you're 2 weeks into March Madness, you're at the Final Four. So, like, or Elite Eight, Sweet 16, something like that. You're in where there's very few teams left,
Very
and
few
so
teams, and those teams that are there, they're there for a reason,
yeah.
and then there's St. Peter's.
and
Great
so
run,
and
but
so they, like I said, they adjusted it there. So I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple years we see the
we
portal be
see
pushed back a little
college
bit.
football move it back. Yeah, they needed it more than basketball, to be honest. But speaking of really poorly scheduled things, you had noted that it's dumb to have the NFL and college football playoff playing on the same day. So, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 games in 11 days is dumb. I feel bad for the Texans, the Chiefs, and all the
It's
people that are
brutal.
having to do that. I mean, it's tough to play one game every 7 days, and when you have to do 2 and 11, that
Brutal.
shouldn't be done. So I think that's just a dumb schedule. I understand you want to play on Christmas. Well, then give those teams a bye on, like, so the Texans and Chiefs, since we're shooting this in advance, played last week on Saturday. Give all those teams that are playing on Christmas that week off and don't schedule them for anything so that then they're all rested and we're not risking player safety.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. Um, I think you're just losing ratings if you're the NFL. I think personally, most people are going to want to watch the college football playoff. I mean, I don't think there's a bad game on the schedule. I mean, I know it's easy nowadays to play both at the same time, play the NFL and college football, but I think they're going to lose out on viewers because people are wanting to watch, I don't know, Clemson and Texas, or probably the best game of the
They
weekend,
want to
Ohio
watch
State,
something that's
Tennessee.
more fresh, whereas they've seen Chiefs Raiders Chiefs Texans
Yeah, and
hundreds
the
of times.
and these NFL games honestly don't matter, like,
Right.
because I think the Texans have already clinched, the Chiefs have already clinched, so
Yeah.
like those two games don't really matter when you have 8 playoff teams, season on the line. I'm wanting to
Yeah.
watch that.
Yeah. I think jumping back into the Christmas thing a bit, I think it's just dumb to have games on Christmas for them in general too. It's the one time I feel like people watch NBA. I know NBA is taking a massive hit in viewership compared to every other sport in general, no less. But this is where the NBA has shined. And one of the few times is Christmas Day. And it doesn't, again, I feel like NBA doesn't have games don't matter there as much, but um, they've still been relatively entertaining. And so the fact that the NFL tried to jump into that with, you're at the end of the season, and most of those, as you mentioned, those games usually don't matter. Or if they do something like last year's Chiefs Raiders, I don't care. And shocker, who won? Like, you already know who's gonna win. Like, if you're gonna do something like that, schedule something random. Schedule like schedule like this might be the one time where I know like nobody wants to watch the Jaguars or like the Patriots. Do something stupid like that. Cause usually for whatever dumb reason, whenever you do Thursday night games with bad teams, they end up being pretty decent games. So like if you're gonna be scheduling that, like schedule teams that don't usually get the spotlight. And I think
Yeah,
it just goes the same way here. Where if it's the same day as the college football playoff, you're going to keep doing that. You're already losing money. Just throw out teams that usually that aren't going to get TV time. Just let them have it. Let the Patriots have it. Let Drake May get some action. The Commanders are doing great, but like going into the year, nobody thought that. Let them have it. Don't do Chiefs for the millionth time. We've all
yeah,
seen them.
yeah,
And they're dodging bolts like crazy. So it's just like it's you're gonna lose a lot of money here. People want to see something fresh, and with the college football playoffs every single year, you're gonna get different matchups because now with you opening up, you're gonna see different teams year to year. We may not see Indiana back here next year. We probably won't see SMU back here next year. We almost certainly probably won't see Arizona State back here next year. So we're going to see different matchups that we haven't seen before, and people are going to want to watch that. So NFL needs to figure out um, a different way around this
yeah.
because I think the college football playoff is earned every right to schedule it when they want it. Um, especially to be honest, they don't really have much of a choice anyway. So, you gotta schedule it somehow. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, we
but
can we can talk about one more thing before we move on to NHL and spend
that's true.
majority of our time there. Colorado. I mean, I think they're retooling. They're losing 2 big players with Shador and Travis. We'll say Travis. Some odd reason he could stay, but I'm pretty sure he's going. Um, they're retooling. They got a quarterback to probably bridge the gap between Shador and their most recent recruit, which is Caden Salters, the Liberty quarterback, which I think is a great signing for them. I think Liberty had a down year this year, and Salters still kind of shined in that situation. I mean, the coach left from Liberty because they had such a great year the year before. I mean, but Salters still had 2,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and then he also had 600 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground, which He's a bigger dual threat than Shador was, so I think he brings a different style of offense to Colorado that could benefit them in the future, or benefit them next year. Because I think their recruit is also a dual threat guy, so
Mhm.
it just can turn the offense now from more of a pocket team to some zone reads and some motion, get the defense moving. But they also signed a former 5-star recruit from Alabama, Jaheim Otis, also. So they're bolstering up that defensive line. He hasn't had probably the best career up to this point, but I think still he's
Upgrade.
it's an upgrade from
Yeah.
what they had. Their defensive line stepped it up later in the year, but I think um, adding him just bolsters that lineup even more.
Yeah.
And they've gotten some more defensive players with the recruiting class. So I think Dion is in a good spot. I think people are wanting to come play for him, which we always knew. When you are a former NFL player, people are going to want to come play for you because you know what it takes to get there. We'll see probably the same thing with Bill Belichick. Guys will want to go play for Bill because he's won in the National Football
Won a
League. He's
lot. Yeah.
he knows what it takes to be a good player in the National Football League, and so you're gonna and I mean Mike Vick just went to Norfolk State. I mean, so you may see an influx of people going to an FCS school. I mean, I think it's cool that former players and coaches are going back to college, and
Yeah.
I think we're gonna start seeing a lot of success from those guys.
I'd agree. It might not always be a given because I know Trent Dilfer, former NFL quarterback, and of course, is not the biggest name, right? Um, you'll see more of these athletes becoming coaches, not necessarily will always be a hit. It just depends on the program they go to, granted, because I don't even remember where Dilfer was at, but it's really small. So it'd be interesting with Vic at Norfolk State. Golly. Um, I think he was obviously a big success in the NFL for the most part, aside what happened during his Atlanta time. Um, but great to see he's bounced back and given a second opportunity. So I think he'll do a good job with that program, and hopefully, maybe eventually, if when he turns that around, he bounces up to a bigger school. But yeah, for sure. I think it's going to the transfer for Colorado. I think it's a big pickup. You know, you're losing Sanders. So you got to find a guy that can fill in that void. And I think Salters will do a great job at filling that void. So obviously, you're most likely losing Travis Hunter too. So that'll hurt as well at the receiver position. Um, but maybe depending on how the cards fall, somehow maybe he does stay. I don't know if he's officially declared, but if the Patriots are sitting there at 3, I think he certainly goes because I think if I was him, I'd want to play Drake May, but that's just me. So that's a big transfer for them, and I think Colorado's gonna look great. I think they're getting a lot of good pieces, and I think they're continue as long as Sanders is there, they're gonna be successful. Um, just a matter of how long. Who knows? Maybe Mike McCarthy gets canned. All of a sudden, you can bring in Dion to replace him. I don't know. So we'll see. I have seen that rumor, but
Yeah, but I
um,
think Dion has said he wants to stay in college. He doesn't want
good
to
for
push
him.
the
Good for
NFL.
him. Good for him. Um, yeah, but who knows? Depends how much money he's given.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, we can move over to NHL. So we have been kind of neglecting it the first 2 episodes, so we're gonna give it a lot of love here. First things first, Winter Classic's coming up. It's coming to Wrigley for the first time since 2009. So going to be really exciting. I was really tempted to stay and go see that game, but I think the Illinois Northwestern Wrigley game was good enough for me, especially since after that game I got sick. So sitting out inside in 28-degree weather for 4 or 5 hours might not be a great idea after all. But um, so they'll be playing the Blues, so that's a big rival. Not even the first time they've both played each other in a Winter Classic. They played each other in 2017 in St. Louis, where the Blackhawks got absolutely spanked, like in every other Winter Classic they've been in. We're the only team that's played it, or one of the few teams that's played in it that hasn't won yet, despite having the most appearances. Hate my life. But at least back in the day, the trend was when we lost it, we won the Stanley Cup. So up to 2015, it was a it was a good incentive. But I wanted to get to two things here: was predictions. Who do you think's gonna win? And why? Who do you think will be the next Winter Classic, or who do you think will be an intriguing matchup? So for me, I'll say the Hawks continue the trend of losing, and we'll get the Winter Classic in 3 years because the NHL is stupid, but I guess we give them ratings. So, but I think hopefully, as long as it's competitive, that's all I care about. Heck, if we could go to overtime, that'd be great. But I don't think it's. I think we're gonna struggle. I know St. Louis is 500, but the Blackhawks, despite being on their first 3-game winning streak since February of 2023, yes, that's true. Did not have one for the 23-24 season, but despite having a hot little winning streak for us, I just don't think they have enough firepower to take down St. Louis. But as for next Winter Classic, it's going to be hard to say. I think there are a couple teams that are more than deserve. I think Colorado, they are more than capable of having one. A matchup that surprising has never happened is Toronto Montreal. I think it's ridiculous that they haven't let that happen. Another matchup, the other matchup that hasn't happened that utterly stupid that they haven't done yet is Boston Rangers, or a couple other matchups. I don't know if Boston Montreal's happened either. So I think they need to go out east for the next couple and share some love out there again, because they're missing out on, they're trying to market to new teams or new players. It's like, how about you just market to teams that have fans? Albeit the Blackhawks do have a lot of fans, but it's not the point. Montreal and Toronto, as much as I don't like them, they need love for games like this. So what are your thoughts on this, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think St. Louis, since they got in Montgomery, I think they're starting to find their stride a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they're just gonna roll into Wrigley and continue what they've been doing, unfortunately. But who knows? The Blackhawks might have found something, and now that they're on a 3-game winning streak, they may come in and surprise people. No, but I agree. I think Colorado would be a cool one. I mean, they've been a contender for a long time now, and I think it would be cool to see a central kind of rivalry happen down there. But I also think something they haven't done Yankee Stadium yet, and I think one in Yankee Stadium could be cool. Or, I mean, I know they've done this already, but MetLife again, and do a Rangers Boston matchup, because those are two teams that don't like each other.
Yeah.
And I think that could be another cool one. I mean, if you want to keep marketing to, the new crowd, you could do a Tampa Bay, Florida Panthers out at like Bucks Field or something like that, or they could wait and do that one whenever Tampa Bay Rays new stadium opens. And
might wait a while.
Yeah. And do it there, but I think you gotta go back up northeast.
For sure.
Yeah. I think a Toronto one could be cool, but I don't know Toronto as well, so I can't even tell you where they do it. I mean, I guess they could do it at the Blue Jays Stadium, but I just don't know if they have another like outdoor kind of arena that they can do.
They could probably find some pond that's frozen and do it there.
I mean, they did that earlier.
They did.
Wasn't it Minnesota?
Was that Minnesota? I thought it was like somewhere out west where they did something like that. Or no, they did an outdoor game for the Kings that was like super late and was a mess. They might have done it for Minnesota. I don't remember.
I don't remember, but yeah.
But that would be cool.
It could be that could be another thing that they do.
I know Toronto's been in one or two. I just don't remember if they hosted another. But yeah, so I think those would be all cool. I feel like really quickly before we jump to the next point. I feel like Toronto, like if you're gonna do Tampa Panthers, I feel like the moment was kind of missed because a couple of years ago Tampa was really good, like at their peak, and Florida was getting there. I feel like that like should have been it if you're gonna do that. On top of the fact that we saw the Seattle Vegas one and that was a mess, so I think there's concerns of weather and I think that'd be the other thing that I'd be worried about. But you do need to mark it out to them from time to time and show them some love as well. But I think they're both in agreement right now. Somewhere in the Northeast needs it. We need to go there for like 2 years because I love having them.
Yeah.
The downside of having them is we suck, and I'm sick of losing them. So we'll see. So hopefully we win. But sticking on the Blackhawks really quick. Shout out to my boy, Connor Bedard, having to carry the fate of the universe on his hands. 19 years old. Just eclipsed the 100th career game the other night. I think he's at a 101 now. And 87 points. Now, people are going to say, well, he's a minus 55. Anyone in their right mind would be at least minus 30 on this AHL Mickey Mouse poverty franchise, okay? Most Hawks fans probably couldn't name 10 players on this roster right now. They are so bad. Of course, I think they're finally. I'm hoping this 3-game stretch is a step in the right direction. I'm hoping, and not just a little honeymoon phase. But so, and I know like Bedard's not the strongest defensively, but he is back checking. He's doing the things he needs to do. He's just stuck with a bad team and a really bad player in Seth Jones, who, yes, once again, you'll be reminded a lot, getting paid more than Cale Makar. Makar. So, but overall, I think just looking at these stats compared to similar first overall picks at their 100th game, Crosby, Ovi, and McDavid were higher. I don't think that's really a surprise. All those guys had better supporting casts by a long shot. McDavid had Draisaitl. Crosby got Malkin. Ovi had, I don't know if he had Backstrom at this point. That's probably the one guy that, he might have just carried the weight on his shoulders. Patrick Kane had Taves. Kane basically had a whole roster built. They were just young. Austin Matthews. I actually don't think he had Kessel. He might have been another guy that didn't have a whole ton of help, but and then a few guys Bedard's ahead of Nathan McKinnon. People are freaking out that calling him a Bedard a bust. McKinnon had 79 points at this point. Look where he's at now. He's got the support, and he's the number 2, maybe second best player in the world. He's not better than McDavid. Had a better year last year, but he's not better than McDavid. Taylor Hall, Steven Stamkos. Yeah, that's another notable name. And then John Tavares. He's all ahead of those guys. And they, again, arguably, for the most part, had more help than Bedard. So I think the criticism that Bedard is receiving is utterly ridiculous. I know I'm biased. But I just don't think it's fair to criticize a 19-year-old under any circumstance, especially when you had the pressure to turn around not just any franchise, an original 6 team in a massive market. And I hate bringing it up, but they're coming off that horrible scandal. It's just the image of the Blackhawks right now is a mess. And Bedard is being told, you're generational talent. You got to fix it right now. So he's doing great. It just got to ease the pressure off his shoulders and get him some help. So just wanted to celebrate that. Bedard, you're doing great. Thumbs up to you. We love you. We shouldn't have you. We literally don't deserve you. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think he's just been given too much hate. I mean, the kid's 19. He's got a long career ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yes, this team is not great. He didn't come into a great team. He came into a really struggling is probably a compliment, but like they were not good. And he hasn't made them a playoff team, but he's made them more respectable. Like teams, their sole purpose is stopping him, and they still can't. Once you put other players around him that are gonna take some of that load off of him, you'll start to see him shine like the McDavids, the Crosbys, the McKinnons, because all of them have people, and even Matthews, all have people around them, and that's when they took that next step and took the step up to being who they are now. And I think
Yeah,
once you get the people around Bedard like that, he's
that's
he's
when
gonna
he's
he's
gonna
just
shine.
gonna he's gonna jump to the next level, and everyone's gonna be like, oh no, he wasn't a bust.
Well, and the other thing, really quick, all these names we mentioned, where are they successful the most? The power play. Who in the world does Bedard have to work with on the power play? First of all, Seth Jones, bum. Uh, I'm sorry, Seth. We didn't want you, and we gave up too much for you. I was just like, McDavid gets at least what, like 50 points a year off the power play. Austin Matthews probably gets like
Mm-hmm.
half, not half, but he gets a good amount of his goals off the power play. That's where a lot of the success comes in because one less guy is out in the ice. That's when guys like them could truly take over and just flash their skills. Bedard doesn't have that opportunity because he doesn't have the guys to help him and just create that opportunity to score on the power play. So I think once you get those guys, you're not only opening up for 5v5, you're gonna see him dominate on the power play. He might not be as good as McDavid or Crosby. That's not my concern. That's not the talk right now. Talk is being a generational talent and being a dominant player, and that's what he's gonna be soon enough. So probably talk about one more thing, and then we should at least get a little baseball in. Yeah, I guess we could stick with. You know what? We talked enough about the Blackhawks, and we already briefly mentioned that win streak in 2023. I'll mention really quickly. Are we Cup Finals bound? We might be. We might be. We might be the 2019 Blues. I'm delusional. Don't believe that. We're still finishing last in the division, but we can talk about another team in that division, your Stars, scoring lows. Tell me what the heck's going on. How could they fix it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough. I mean, they're scoring 2 to 3 goals a game. I mean, there's been a couple of empty net goals that makes it look like they've scored more, but they're struggling offensively. It's not that they aren't getting the chances. They are
Yeah.
getting the chances that they want. It's that their struggle is putting it in the back of the net.
Mm,
And which is probably an upside. And I mean, we've been good these past like 5-6 years, and so we're getting used to being good. And when the struggle happens, it sucks, but they're getting the opportunities, which I think is the positive part of all of it. But their power play has been
bad.
abysmal. They're
Mm.
24th in the league this year,
Oof.
and they're only converting on 17.5% of their
Mm.
power plays. Yeah. Hopefully, I mean I, they're I think Sagan losing Sagan's been a big impact. I think it's being more of an impact than we initially thought. I knew it'd be an impact for sure, but I think it's starting to become bigger than you know we thought it would be. The second line is struggling a little bit. Duchesne is struggling to score, which once again had a great start to his year. Marchment is also struggling to score a little bit. I think Duchesne scored last game, which hopefully is a sign for good things to come. But I think replacing Sagan has to start. I mean, the Stars haven't been like closed about this. They want someone to take to trade for to take Sagan's spot on that line, but it's just
Yeah.
going and finding someone that's going to fit your team and your roster. I think is the hard part. Um, and I mean, if all things go well, Sagan could be back for playoffs. Um, and then once he comes back for the playoffs, then you have another guy alongside Sagan and the first line that you could pop in and score goals. So I think once again we're early in the season.
Mhm.
I mean, they've played some good teams. I mean, they're coming off playing the Capitals. They play the Rangers. Uh, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think once they're able to start putting the puck in the back of the net, they're getting the opportunities. They
Yeah.
just got to convert on them.
Yeah, two things that don't really quit. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the struggle to bury the puck in the back of the net. That was part of the Bedard's struggle here. You know, he was, and there's nothing tougher on most athletes than something like this. You know, scoring a goal in particular. You go on this drought, you get really frustrated. You force things, you force bad shots. You just try to do whatever it takes to score, and that's what the Stars are sort of going through as a whole. Um, and they having a bad power play hurts you a ton. You know, to be the bottom 10 part of the league is not ideal. So I think it's just at this point, just got to figure out what they're doing. I don't know if it's struggling entering the zone. I know that was a big part of the Blackhawks. You know, they had issues entering the zone. So in turn, they just don't even get opportunities. So it could just be, I felt like usually the Stars' problem is trying to create the perfect play. And I think they need to simplify it maybe a little bit. Just get the shot on net. You know, rebounds are a big part of scoring goals, man. You know, you just got to get in the front of the net, shoot it. It sometimes it gets blocked, so be it. Don't try to force the perfect play because the Stars got great star power, but they don't have the guy. They have the guys, but they don't have the McDavid. They don't have the Austin Matthews. I love Robertson. He's not on that level. They don't have the guys that could just completely overtake it no matter what. So I think you just got to simplify the power play a bit. You might have to shift the players around, but and then I think in third, last point, you know, you got some young guys. You have a lot of veterans, but you have a lot of young, you know, Johnson, Marshman are both really young players. And so when they're struggling, it affects them a lot more than veterans usually for the most part. So I think you just got to let them develop and they're going to struggle, but they'll figure things out. So the fact that you're 19 and 12 and saying you're struggling is to me a good thing. I think the biggest thing the Stars need to do right now is if you're struggling in a game, get it to overtime. No overtime losses is killing you. If you take away 5 regulation losses, now all of a sudden we're probably not necessarily saying you're struggling.
Yeah.
I think you just have too many regulation losses. Got to get more games to overtime, win or loss. Got to get that extra point. And I think you're in a much prettier spot. But regardless, 19 wins is a lot. The fact that we're talking about you're struggling and you're 19-12, teams have it far worse. So that's still a good position, especially in a hard division. You're not, you know, Winnipeg, Colorado got a lot of decent teams there. Minnesota got a lot of decent teams competing for the top. So the fact that you're still competing, Stars will figure it out. I'm confident they will figure it out. They got a great group of guys. So
Yeah.
yeah. So MLB, where do we want to end? Well, I think we brought it up last episode, so we'll bring it up right now. So the Astros, yeah, they lost out on Arenado, probably going to lose Bregman, but they did bring in Christian Walker, 3 years. I believe it was $20 million a year. So how do you feel about that? Do you think that'll improve them at all? How do you feel about the fit?
I think it addresses an issue. I think an issue that they had last year was first base. I mean, Jose Abreu started the year, didn't turn out to be, at all what they thought he could be. Unfortunately for Abreu. And I think this fits a need that they needed, which was first base, but I don't think it really addresses anything that they wanted to go for. I think you still have a hole at third base. Yes, you got a first baseman, but I felt like you had a couple guys that if you had to really rely on, you could play them at first. Trading Kyle Tucker was a big one. I guess in a sense you don't have a hole at third. You have Paredes. But I don't know. I think as a Rangers fan, I'm happy because I don't think they're the big bad Astros that they have been. They are definitely looking more vulnerable than they have in the past, I don't know, 10 years, since Springer, Altuve, and Bregman all came up. And I mean, overall, they've probably done the second most maybe in the AL West. I mean, the AL West has been very quiet. The Mariners haven't really done anything. The Angels really haven't done anything. I mean, the A's, I think the A's have actually been more active than some teams. I saw that they just signed someone else, or Gio
Gio
Urshela.
Ursula, yeah.
Yeah. And so they've been more active than the Mariners and the Angels, which the Mariners weren't far from being a playoff team. And so there's guys out there that you can go and get to
They're
solidify a
letting him
roster.
go.
And they have sat there, twiddled their thumbs, and let free agents go. So I still think they're first or second in the division, but I think they're losing. I think it's a good sign for them. You get to replace some of the Kyle Tucker that you're losing, but I don't think it really addresses for me a need that they really were looking for.
I think it's an okay move. I think you're kind of at this point you're embracing that it's not necessarily a rebuild, but it's definitely a retool. And I think it just also depends what there is next year. I feel like if they're preparing themselves for next off season, that is a decent move. I just don't know what the goal is here by signing Walker. I think it just depends what they're trying to focus on. If this is to try to continue to win now, I just don't think it makes a ton of sense. You lost your best player. Um, Albeit I think he'll complement the lineup fairly well. And I think he's a decent first baseman. I think it's a decent glove. Could be wrong.
Yeah, I think he won
But I
Gold
think
Glove
yeah, I
2
think he
years
has a
ago.
Gold Glove or was
Yeah.
at least a finalist. So I think that'll help them out well. But yeah, they're definitely taking a step back. I think Astros are definitely embracing that. Yankees, and then really everybody else. Pretty much anybody in the AL Central it probably has a better shot at winning the World Series than them right now. So it's a 3-year deal, so you don't have to win with them right away. Um, so if you want to take a step back, just let them have some fun and they just address other issues next off season and maybe give Paredes an opportunity to develop and potentially be that everyday guy, then great. But definitely feels like this was a move just to make a move. Um, they were looking at other options that weren't going their way, so they jumped at Walker instead, and maybe even they just did it just to steal him from the Yankees. I don't know, but um, I think it's an okay move. It's not bad. It's not great. I just don't think it makes them that much better. He's a fine player, and I'd love to have him on my team, but um, yeah, I think Astros may win the division again, but not much else. This
I
move
think
doesn't push
I
them out of the LDS, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the better move for them. This is just I I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can. I think Anthony Santander probably would have been a better move for them
Yeah,
because you get to replace.
power hitter.
I once again I don't fully know what they have in their minors, and they may have. I mean, I
Yes,
know Loperfido has made his way, and I know he had a pretty good year, but I don't know if you're having him play your everyday right field, and if you are, then cool, that makes sense. But I think Santander would have made a little bit more sense because he's a switch hitter. I think they're getting a little right heavy because you have Francisco Pena, who's a righty, you have Paredes, who's a righty, you have now Altuve, who is a righty, you have Walker, who's a righty, you have Jordan, who's a lefty. I think your
yeah,
catcher Diaz is now a righty, so I think you're getting too righty heavy.
don't have a lot of
And
lefties.
I think that hurt a couple teams. I mean, it hurt the Rangers last year, which is why they've gone out and gotten a couple lefties or switch hitters. But I think when you have too many of one side, even if it was too many lefties, I mean, you just run into the same issue of it's easier to pitch to like to game plan against a team like that because you can be like, oh well, I have 6 righties in a row. I'm gonna throw a righty pitcher,
Yeah.
and save my left-handers for the left situation that's coming up next inning. I don't know. I don't think it's like I said, I don't think it's a bad move, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on what they're. I don't know what they're trying to do. If they're trying to win now, it's not great. But if they're trying to retool and maybe go for it next year, then maybe it turns out to actually be a really good move, and we eat our words next year.
Yeah. We'll wait and see. So, we could cap off on one more thing before we go. We could go a little over. We could probably talk about Sasaki and then just talk about the other stuff next episode. So the top, I think I thought I saw Dodgers were favored, but it sounds like maybe the Yankees are pushing more. And I did see the Mets just met with him as well. But the big team right now, for sure, pursuing him are the Padres, as you noted, not expected to sign until at least January 15th. So we got a little bit of time to wait. But it should sign relatively soon after that, though, because as you mentioned,
Yeah.
window is open until January 23rd, so you can't wait forever. But where do you think he's going?
He's waiting until, which is smart of him. January 15th is when the international pool resets, and so he's gonna get the most money that he can out of it, which totally makes sense. I get that. I think the Padres are the best ones. I think because of the relationship that he has with Darvish, I
Yeah,
think that is a big plus for the Padres. I think they could possibly use that to their advantage, and say, hey, we've got a guy that had to make this transition. Yeah, he didn't make it with us, but he knows the process and what it takes, and he's been successful. So we've got someone that can take you under his wing for a little bit.
yeah. I think that makes sense too. They need a pitcher, whereas everybody else as we mentioned, I mean the Dodgers do need pitchers just in terms of what they went through last year. A lot of their guys couldn't stay healthy, but if they're healthy, they got a rotation. Same with the Yankees. Yankees got a full rotation. So for me, if I'm Sasaki, I'm not going there either. I don't know the Mets rotation as well. It looks like I don't know if they kept Manaea or if they're favored to keep him. I don't remember if he's signed yet or not. They did lose Severino, so actually they could. Well, Clay Holmes fills in for that role. So I'm not entirely certain what those rotations will look like for the most part. But I do know Padres could use another pitcher, and I think it makes sense for all the same reasons you mentioned. Got a great relationship with Darvish. You're gonna stay in the West Coast. I'm sure he wants to stay somewhere where it's warm. And I think ultimately he's gonna want to look for an area where I think as mentioned earlier, you're gonna want to make a ton off endorsements. You're not gonna make as although the Dodgers generally would be the best fit, there's just other guys that are going to overshadow you, right? Ohtani's going to overshadow you every single second. He's the top dog there. In San Diego, you could be that guy. There isn't really one true guy that's going to dominate the endorsement side of things.
Yeah, the Padres' best guy, I mean, is Tatis, but like best pitcher wise, it's Michael King.
Michael King, and he's not going to just
and he's not he's not going to be the ace if you go there. You're going to be their guy.
Yeah,
and I think ultimately, if you're coming over, that's what you want. Like I want to be the guy.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit less pressure. San Diego has kind of built themselves where they're becoming a more high pressure market. They definitely have aspirations to win the World Series every single year now. But the Dodgers have been like that for well over a decade now. And again, you play in LA of all places where it's win or bust. So I think that's just another additional factor. You're not going to you're not going to get as much criticized if you struggle a little bit in San Diego versus LA, where you're. They're not the nastiest fans. They're pretty close. But I do know, like, if you go to a place like Chicago or New York, you do bad, it's gonna be pretty nasty. Boston too, but
Yeah,
I
I
think that
also
just another factor, at least for me,
yeah
would be a reason to go to San Diego over
yeah.
anywhere else.
I also think with San Diego, they're not in win now mode. Like they would like to win now, but you've got Machado locked up for a little bit. You've got Tatis locked up for a long
Yeah,
time. You have, I think, 5 more years of control on Jackson Merrill. You have, I think, 4 or 5 years, depending on how much he played last year, on your catcher, Luis Campusano. Like, this team isn't in win now mode. It's like, hey, we would like to win, but there's no pressure to win
they're
right
not
now.
desperate to win the World Series right now, although they are desperate to beat Big Brother every single year.
Yeah.
Their Dodgers will be Big Brother until the Padres can figure it out. But yeah, that makes sense. Dodgers are pretty much competing for that win now mode mentality every single year, so there'd be a lot of pressure there, and the Yankees definitely are feeling crazy to think 15 years is a long time. As kid went through 100 plus years and nothing. So, and we're again, have to remind the people, third biggest city in America. Pretty freaking pathetic if you ask me. But yeah, so crazy to think, like, if you went to the Yankees, there's a ton of pressure there. Probably the most pressure out of any city right now, because they are just desperate to get 20 is it 27, or are they already at 27? It's crazy that I forgot. Yankee fans remind me every 5 seconds. I don't know. But whatever, they're next banner. So yeah, it does help that they got a lot of pieces locked up. They are in World Series contention, but not in win now. They're not feeling the pressure of having to win. If they lost next year, no big deal, but it's not devastating. Whereas it would be pretty heartbreaking for those other big markets. So, I think we're good. We could talk about the Rangers acquiring another relief pitcher next week, or 2 weeks from now, along with the Red Sox signing a pitcher, which may or may not have Corbin Burns implications. Probably a sign that they are out of the running. But again, talk about that later. So, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to piggyback off of what you said. Uh, Judge isn't going to be around for a whole lot longer. His dominance isn't going to be around for a whole lot longer, which is why I think the Yankees are in a win now
Yeah,
mode.
I forgot. Yeah, Judge is what, 33?
Yeah,
He's older than I thought.
he's older, and he's gonna start taking a downfall, which his downfall may not be as drastic as other players, but he's not going to be as dominant as he is
Yeah,
now.
he's not going
And
to hit 58 homers forever.
if you're trying to win multiple World Series, which I think the Yankees are trying to do, win
Ambitious.
win now is what you're in, and you're
Yeah.
throwing. Which is I think why they signed Max Fried to this contract they did. They're in win now mode. They don't care about 4 years or 6 years from now. They care about right now and the
Next
year
year,
after.
yep.
They
Makes
want it
sense.
now, and they're desperate for it, which will cost them in the long run. But they have their guy now.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. Well, we will see y'all next time. Thanks for listening. And I'm sure the next episode will have some juicy college football playoff implications. Does Ohio State get it done? Lord, please, Tennessee win. We are all Tennessee fans, except for the people in Ohio. So, but yeah, we will see you all next time.